Chapter 2866. Sheng Yin stared blankly at Tanghua. This made the family Tang believe that this transaction worth 150 taels of silver would be successful. They didn't expect this girl to be worth so much money. Even in their previous life, when they betrothed Tanghua to the son of the minister-counselor, the betrothal gift was only 20 taels of silver. Here, a dozen taels of silver was enough for an ordinary family to live for a year. 20 taels of silver was enough for an ordinary family to live comfortably for a year. With 150 taels of silver, even if there was a famine in the village, it wouldn't affect them much. Now, they wished they could stuff Tanghua into the sedan chair behind Shi Xingshan and have them quickly carry her away and give them the 150 taels of silver. Sheng Yin's name was a jade pendant that Tanghua accidentally saw hanging around Xing Yin's neck last night. The pendant had Xing Yin's name printed on it. She had interrogated the men, but she didn't get any information about Xing Yin's background. They said that they had also received the money and, according to their employer's orders, threw this fool into the dilapidated temple to become a beggar. As for the rest, they really didn't know. Later, she planned the scene and then returned to the cowshed to wait for Shi Xingshan, the old beggar who wanted to protect Xing Yin. She asked him to bring Xing Yin to buy her. The old beggar was pure and kind, so she believed that he could be trusted. If he obediently followed her orders, when she opened a chicken farm in the future, he would be the steward of the chicken farm and she would give him shares. System: this future chicken farmer is really going to die of laughter. Master Shi, young Master Shi seems to be very satisfied with our guagua, right? Madame Wu's face was smiling like a chrysanthemum. If young Master Shi is satisfied, then let's settle the marriage. I heard that Master Shi is in a hurry and wants to go to another place. We don't mind. We can handle the wedding today. What wedding? It was just selling Tanghua and letting people carry her away. There were already people in the village who came to watch the show. The reborn family Tang didn't care about these gazes at all. The people in this village would die of the plague in the future. So what if they laughed at them? For a merchant like Shi Xingshan, if he wanted to marry his daughter as his granddaughter-in-law, the monetary gift would be 150 taels. He didn't believe that Shi Xingshan would be able to resist. Mother, are you planning to sell me off? The smile on Madame Wu's face disappeared, and she said reproachfully, "You silly girl, you really don't know any better. What do you mean by selling you? This is a good family for you. Others can't wait to be envious." That's right, Guagua. This is a good family. Don't think too much. If you marry over, you will live a life of luxury. No one will be envious of you. Aunt Zhang said. Madame Li also said, "Didn't you say you didn't want to work? Since you don't want to work, your two brothers should have invited Master Shi over when they found out about such a good thing. Let's see how much your brothers favor you." The onlookers in the village felt that this family was a little shameless. In fact, they were also very strange. In the past few days, the family members had been particularly strange. Suddenly, they doted on the jinx of the village and mistreated the little girl who was once in their hands. Now, what was unbelievable was that they wanted to marry Tanghua to a fool. However, the monetary gift of 150 taels was indeed very tempting. If their family had a little girl who could satisfy Master Shi, even if she didn't marry that fool, they would be willing to marry Master Shi. Chapter 2867. After all, life was not easy these days. It was worth it to exchange 150 taels of silver for a daughter. But they still could not understand. Didn't the Tang family treasure Tanghua very much? They practically raised her like a rich young lady. But now, it was a good deal to exchange 150 taels of silver for her daughter. My grandson seems to like this young lady a lot. Shi Xingshan's face was taut as he said this. Looking at this family's face, he shook his head in his heart. No wonder the little girl looked so mysterious and could take out such a good thing. He would rather go to the pawn shop and pawn the money than give it to this family. Using this method to leave, they were just calling it quits. 150 taels of silver in exchange for their upbringing and cutting off their relationship. Yin is indeed very satisfied with this little girl. Shi Xingshan waved his hand and immediately, someone sent 150 taels of silver to Madame Wu and Tang Fengshu. This is a gift of 150 taels of silver. Because we are in a hurry, Can we take her away now? Madame Wu looked at the shiny silver and immediately did not care about what would happen to Tangguo in the future. Anyway, she was an ingrate. It did not matter what would happen to her in the future. Of course, this girl can marry into Master Shi's family. She is so lucky in her previous life. If it were not for her face, she would have held the silver in her hand and weighed it in her hand. Pingshan, carry your sister into the sedan chair. Tang Fengshu reacted quickly and asked Tang Pingshan to carry Tangguo into the sedan chair. Tang Ying wanted to say something, but Madame Li was afraid that she would make a fuss. She grabbed her hand and led her into the room. Tang Ying's body appeared to be that of a 9-year-old. Madame Li was a careless woman with great strength. Even if she wanted to break free, she could not. Ying, don't make a fuss. Today is your eldest sister's big day. If you make a fuss, it will be inauspicious. Madame Li coaxed Tang Ying. When your eldest sister successfully gets married, I will make delicious food for you. Then I will go to the city to make 2 beautiful new clothes for you. I will dress our Ying up beautifully. Yes, now that they were rich, they would definitely dress their Ying up as the most beautiful girl. Because she was still taller, there was no girl younger than Tang Ying in the family for the time being. Therefore, Madame Li didn't plan on making too many clothes. Girls her age grew quickly and wouldn't be able to wear them in 2 years. If Tang Ying was a real girl, she might have been happy immediately. However, she was a person with the mind of an adult. She clearly knew what was happening now. She still wanted to struggle and run back to stop this. Suddenly, they heard Tangguo's voice. I know why you suddenly hate me so much. I had a dream that day. Since you think that I owe you and have let you down, then let's call it even today. But I actually want to ask, what have I done wrong to you? If it wasn't for me... Tangguo's voice suddenly became so low that only Tang Pingshan and Tang Pingqin, who were standing beside her, could hear her. Big brother, second brother, if it wasn't for me, do you think you would have starved to death? Do you know how much I suffered for the sake of those grains? Did you really not see it? I've done my best to help you for 2 months. Do I really owe you so much that you hate me so much? Chapter 2868. The family Tang did not expect Tangguo's words. Especially Tang Pingshan and Tang Pingqin, who had heard the latter part of the speech, they were both dumbfounded. While they were still in a daze, Tangguo had already turned around and got into the small sedan. Her voice continued, Today, I'll treat it as if you sold me out. Do you still want to think about it? Tang Ying had already stopped struggling. She did not expect her elder sister to be so stubborn that she would show her face in public. This scene was different from the dream. Perhaps the dream was a warning. When something really happened, if there was a slight difference, it would be ever-changing. Tang Ying turned around and looked at the small sedan chair. She couldn't see Tangguo's expression clearly. Shi Xingshan was also waiting. Perhaps this family had suddenly thought it through? The family Tang people were not thinking, but shocked. From the previous words, they obviously knew one thing, and that was that Tangguo might have been reborn like them. Knowing that Tangguo had been reborn, they were not happy at all. Instead, they were a little angry. Why was this ingrate reborn? The few reborn people reacted and looked at each other. In the end, Tang Fengshu said, Master Shi, look at this. Why, are you going back on your word? Shi Xingshan put his hands behind his back and held his head high. I've given you 150 taels. Are you going to break the marriage now? No, of course not. Madame Wu said first, we don't mean to break the marriage. What we mean is that it's almost the auspicious time. My granddaughter will be in the care of Master Shi and young Master Shi. Knowing that this girl might have been reborn, they could not keep her. It was possible to correct it before, but now that she had been reborn, she was a real ingrate. They did not dare to raise her. No wonder they felt that this girl was becoming more and more disobedient. It turned out that she had been reborn. She had kept it from them for so long. It was obvious that she was a scheming person. It's not breaking the marriage. That's good. Shi Xingshan sighed in his heart. As expected, there was no hope. He waved his hand, then let's go. Shi Xingshan brought Xing Yin into the palanquin, but Xing Yin's gaze was fixed on Tangguo's palanquin. Looking at the small sedan chair over there, he couldn't bear to move his feet. With no other choice, Shi Xingshan whispered, when we get out, we'll change to another carriage. You and your wife can sit together in the carriage. Hearing this, Xing Yin got onto the palanquin. The 3 palanquins were carried away. Without the so-called bragging and beating, Shi Xingshan did not dare to make arrangements on his own. After leaving the village and arriving at the city, Tanggua got down from the sedan chair. A person suddenly appeared in front of him. Who else could it be but Xing Yin? She reached out to touch Xing Yin's head. He seemed to have understood something and lowered his head to let her touch him. System, what the fuck? His understanding of this person has been refreshed once again. Does this person still have any face left? Even if he wanted to cheat her, he shouldn't cheat her like this, right? She really had no moral integrity at all. Miss Tang. Shi Xingshan cupped his hands towards Tanggua. The matter you entrusted me with has been completed. So, can the little fool and I leave now? Previously, Tanggua had promised to give them a sum of money, which was why he agreed to this matter. I plan to go to the capital with this little fool. Shi Xingshan was a little speechless. Actually, he could tell that Tanggua seemed to be interested in this little fool. Chapter 2869. Could it be that this girl was so infuriated by her family that she decided to find a little fool? However, this little fool was indeed quite good-looking, unlike his old face, which no one wanted. Shi Xingshan, I see that you're doing a good job. You're quite reliable and you're quite loyal. Why don't you come with me? Anyway, you have nowhere to go, and I happen to be short of manpower. Shi Xingshan pondered for a moment and felt that it was a good idea. Ever since the famine in his hometown, he had fled here. After being a beggar for so many years, he had seen all kinds of people. He dared to say that this little girl was not simple. Therefore, he immediately agreed without any hesitation. System, damn, what a shameless old man. The group of people went on the road to the capital and disguised themselves as merchants. Tanggua and Xing Yin sat in the carriage, while Shi Xingshan and the coachman sat outside. The system asked softly, Host, didn't you say that you wanted to wait for the male lead? We'll talk about it when we're fated. Opening a chicken farm is important. The male lead is so smart. Even if he doesn't have a pipe dream, he won't be at a disadvantage in the hands of the family. We'll definitely meet the male lead in a place like the capital. Dear host, your big cutie has become a fool. She has become a little fool. But he's still as obedient as before. As Tanggua spoke, she rubbed Xing Yin's head. Xing Yin looked at her with a pair of sparkling eyes, as if he was saying, you can rub me again and see. If you rub me again, I might become even cuter. System. Sorry, he shouldn't have said that. This guy's moral integrity had long been eaten by dogs. Even if he had become a fool, he would have cursed himself countless times to ensure that he would not do anything that would harm the host. The road to the capital was very long. With their current speed, it would take them more than 2 months to reach the capital. Originally, Shi Xingshan should have been worried. After all, it was easy to encounter bandits on the road to the capital. However, he had seen Tanggua's skills before, so he was not worried about any bandits at all. No matter how many bandits there were, they would not be a match for his boss. Yes, Tanggua was his boss now. He quickly adapted to the identity of an old butler. The boss said that he was going to open a chicken farm in the capital. The location of the chicken farm was just outside the capital. From now on, the chicken and eggs would be served to the big restaurants and nobles in the capital. Although he was a little surprised by this matter, after all, his boss was a little girl who was not even 12 years old. But at the same time, he believed that she would succeed. The group walked for more than 10 days before stopping at a tea shop at a fork in the road to rest and drink herbal tea. After being on the road for so many days, Shi Xingshan was starting to feel tired. After being a beggar for so many years, he did not have enough food to eat or warm clothes to wear. His body was indeed not very strong. Tang Yin was also a little tired, but Tanggua was very energetic. This made Shi Xingshan even more confident that he must work hard for his boss. There's no hurry. Walk slowly. When we reach the capital, you should take care of your body first. Otherwise, you won't be able to take it when there are too many things to do. Tanggua had already decided to take out some secret martial arts manuals for Shi Xingshan to practice. It was not easy to find a butler that was pleasing to the eye, so she hoped that he would not die. Alright, boss. I'll definitely take good care of my body. Shi Xingshan believed that what he said was true. At this moment, the sound of horse hooves could be heard from afar. Not long after, the group arrived at the tea shop and chose a seat to sit down. Tangwa saw a very outstanding and cold man at a glance. The other party's senses were very sharp, and he instantly noticed her. But when he saw that there was only curiosity in Tangwa's eyes, he looked away. Tangwa felt another gaze on her. She looked away and saw Xing Yin's bright eyes staring at her without blinking. When he saw that she had noticed him, he held the bowl and drank tea with satisfaction. System, it's confirmed. They are fighting for favor. Chapter 2870. Host, I think the man beside her has a unique figure and a unique style. Is he the male lead? The system asked secretly, but it was already certain in its heart. After all, the male lead was going to meet Tang Ying soon. Tang Ying, who was wandering around the back of the mountain, picked him up and hid him in a cave at the back of the mountain to raise him. Now that this group of people was in a hurry, the male lead was probably going to do something dangerous. Later on, he was probably going to encounter some danger, so he ended up in the family Tang village and was picked up by Tang Ying. I think so. Tangwa only glanced at him and did not look at him again. Every time she raised her head, the little fool, who was eating silently beside her, would look at her with a silly and innocent look. Therefore, it was better not to look at other people. It was good to look at this little fool, and she felt that this little fool was more pleasing to the eye. Sheng Yin did not know if he sensed Tangwa's thoughts, but he raised his head and looked at her eagerly. She did not know if he knew something, but when he saw that Tangwa only drank water and did not eat anything, he even took a piece of hot cake and put it in front of Tangwa. Shi Xingshan noticed this action and felt very complicated. Nowadays, even a little fool knew how to woo a little girl? This was the so-called talent. Even if he was a little foolish, he could learn some things by himself. However, he also could not understand little girls these days. They could be interested in anything, but they just had to be a little fool. Bah, now that she was his boss, he could not complain about her in his heart. The group of people beside them had some tea and hurriedly left on their horses. During this time, they did not look at Tangwa again. Perhaps they thought that Tangwa and her group were not a threat and were not suspicious, and were a group of insignificant people. There was an inn next to the tea shop. Tangwa thought that it was already late, so she planned to rest in this inn for the night and continue her journey tomorrow. Anyway, she was not in a hurry to go to the capital. Shi Xingshan did not have any objections. As for the little fool Xing Yin, he would listen to whatever Tangwa said. Not long after they entered the inn, the sky resounded with the sound of thunder, followed by a heavy downpour. Shi Xingshan's face was filled with joy. Boss is indeed wise. If not for boss's decision to stay here for the night, I'm afraid we would all be drenched in the rain. System, don't you know who he is? He predicted that there would be rain soon. Tangwa sat by the window and looked at the wet road outside. The tables and chairs placed outside by the tea house next to them had been moved into the shed. There were still people outside. They hurriedly rushed into the inn and cursed. The heavens were really capricious. They said it would rain and it would rain without giving them any news. After a while, Tangwa heard the sound of hoofs. Then she saw a group of people riding horses in the distance. Soon, they arrived outside the inn. Tangwa saw the man who came. He was the man she met in the tea shop before. Tangwa looked at him and saw him. Host, after I said that it would rain soon, did you expect that the male lead would come back? Yes. If they really went in the direction of family Tang village, according to the route we took, it would take them 2 days to reach the next stop, even if they rode horses. This is still considered fast. The road in the middle is very desolate. There are basically no signs of people. It is still a mountain road, and there are no tea shops. Chapter 2871. It's pouring now and they haven't been gone for long. They'll definitely be back. Then, you can give the male lead a golden millet dream, right? The system said with certainty, Host, you're the real daughter of the heavens. Look, whatever you want will come to you. I suspect that it's because I know about the repercussions of being a koi fish. That's why whatever I want will come to me. The system immediately said, then, great host, help me think. When will I have an official status in the system and have an awesome serial number? Although I don't know how long it will take, I'll have it sooner or later. System, are you so careless when you're lying to a little system like me now? During dinner, Tangwa chose a seat in the main hall of the inn and prepared to eat there. Coincidentally, the male lead and his entourage were next to her. When Tangwa and the other two came down, he was on high alert and subconsciously glanced at them. He saw that it was an old man and a young boy and girl. He had seen them before, so he didn't look at them anymore. Young master, the rain came suddenly. We don't know when it'll stop. Gong Jinglin looked at the rain that was getting heavier and heavier outside and frowned slightly. This rain really didn't come in time. Sigh, if it weren't for the fact that we don't have a place to stay for the rest of the journey, we wouldn't have to come back here. It'll take at least 2 days to get to the next place to stay. We don't know when this rain will stop. Hearing his subordinate's words, Gong Jinglin clenched his fists tightly and slowly released them. We'll see when the time comes. I'm just afraid that someone will arrive before us and ruin young master's plans. All right, let's not talk about this anymore. There are too many people around. Let's wait for the rain to stop first. After Gong Jinglin spoke, there were no more sounds of discussion from the other side. Boss, I'm afraid that group of people isn't simple. Sure Xingshan followed Tangwa upstairs and sent her back to her room before saying softly, they're probably nobles from the capital. Tangwa smiled faintly. Since they're nobles, let's not talk about them. She glanced down. We're going to the capital to do business, not to climb up the social ladder. It was time to teach her, this old housekeeper, that the male lead was a martial arts master and could hear their whispers. It was better to wait until they reached the capital, find a place to settle down, and settle down. Late at night, Gong Jinglin had a dream. No, he had 2 dreams, 2 very strange dreams. In the dream, he couldn't tell if it was a dream or if it had really happened. Everything that happened in the dream was too realistic. It made him doubt it, but he had no choice but to believe it. When he woke up, the sky was already bright. He pushed the door open and saw his subordinate standing at the door. What's wrong? Young master, we were just about to ask you what happened. If we hadn't heard your long breathing and realized that you hadn't woken up at this time, we would have thought that something had happened to you. His subordinate's strange expression reminded Gong Jinglin of the 2 dreams he had last night. Although it was very realistic, he was still skeptical. When he came back to his senses, he only said, maybe it was because of the rain yesterday, so I woke up late. I see. Young master, are you all right now? When the subordinate was worried, he couldn't help but feel curious. Chapter 2872. Their young master was highly skilled in martial arts and had profound internal energy. Was he feeling unwell after being drenched in the rain? However, when they saw that Gong Jinglin's face was rosy and did not look like he was sick, they were confused again. Let's go. I checked just now. The rain has stopped. Go down and get some dry rations. Let's hurry. The subordinate weighed the bundle in his hand. Young master, we've already bought the dry rations. We're just waiting for you to wake up so we can continue our journey. The group of people left. Tangwa stood by the window and watched their backs as they galloped away. At this moment, she felt a burning gaze on her. She turned around and saw Xing Yin, who was sitting by the table, staring at her without blinking. He looked as innocent as possible, as if she had done something wrong to him. She buried her head and smiled. She turned around and walked back. She sat beside him and patted his head. Little fool, go downstairs and have breakfast first. We'll continue our journey after eating. Tangwa pinched Xing Yin's face. You've been on the road for so many days. You've lost weight from hunger. Tangwa held Xing Yin's hand and opened the door. Sure Xingshan was standing at the door with a speechless expression. Just now, he had heard the boss say that the little fool had been starved and skinny because of the journey. He looked at Xing Yin's rosy face. How had he lost weight from hunger? He was clearly much chubbier than when he was in the dilapidated temple. His boss had asked people to prepare everything along the way. This little fool only needed to stuff food into his mouth. How could he have lost weight from hunger? He could not even recognize the words lost weight from hunger now. After leaving the inn, when Tangua got into the carriage, Tangua asked Shi Xingshan, "Butler, you can read, right?" "I can read." Shi Xingshan sighed. "When my hometown was in famine, I was still an accountant. Later on, he fled to the dilapidated temple and became a beggar. Life was not easy at that time. Although he had some accounting skills, he was a refugee and did not have a household registration here. It was impossible for anyone to hire him. After all, it involved benefits. Who would be willing to take in someone who did not know his background? However, he wasn't too willing to sell himself as a servant. At the very least, he used to be half a scholar. He really couldn't accept being a slave for the rest of his life and even his descendants. In the end, he simply became an old beggar. He figured out the surrounding terrain and worked as a guide for outsiders in the city. Other than the fact that he didn't have a proper place to stay, his life was much better than that of ordinary beggars. "I have a book here. Old housekeeper, take it and read it carefully. It would be best if you could learn the contents of the book." When Shi Xingshan heard this, he thought that his boss was testing him. When he took the book, he had already made a decision in his heart. He had to thoroughly understand the contents of the book. After reading the book, he was still a little dumbfounded. The book was divided into two parts. One part was an internal cultivation method, and the other part was a set of saber techniques. So, did the boss give him a secret martial arts book? He had heard of martial arts manuals before. There were definitely such peerless experts in this world, but he had never met one. In the city, he often heard storytellers talk about those experts who could leap onto roofs and vault over walls. "Butler, learn the things in the book well. There are many things for you to do in the future. Your body, as well as your martial strength, are both very important." Shi Xingshan, who felt that he was valued, was suddenly energized. Since the boss trusted him, he would do it. Chapter 2873. After more than 2 months of travel, Tangua finally arrived in the capital. She first bought a small courtyard in a remote place in the capital as a place to stay. The next day, she brought Shi Xingshan, who had some success in his practice, to the outskirts of the capital to inspect the place. After more than 10 days, she found a good place. She used a lot of money to buy a small hill, which was actually a useless barren hill. Since there was a spendthrift like her, of course, it was very easy to buy the hill. Tangua recruited a group of people to help her raise the chicks. She asked people to go to the farmers' houses and buy the chicks one by one. At first, she couldn't buy too many chicks, but she was not in a hurry. She instructed the hired people to feed the chicks according to her method. She even let the chicks out for a walk every day at a fixed time to let them exercise. Shi Xingshan didn't understand at all. Was this how chickens were raised? Walking every day? He had never heard of this before. "Boss, I don't understand why you let these chicks out for a walk every day at a fixed time. You even asked people to comb their feathers regularly. Boss, are you raising chickens or raising a group of little ancestors?" "Butler, after our inspection, although there are no particularly big chicken farmers in the capital, there are still many people who raise chickens, right? In such a big place, there were countless restaurants and countless officials and nobles. It was impossible for every family to raise enough chickens. Most of them had to be bought from outside. Therefore, there were people who raised these animals long ago. If she raised them in the same way as them, not only would she offend people, but it would also be difficult for her to make a name for herself. Therefore, she decided to raise them in a different way. She raised them meticulously and treated them like their ancestors. She wanted everyone to know that the chickens she raised were more expensive than some people. Naturally, the eggs she laid would be more expensive, and the chicken would be more expensive. Although there were still people living in poverty in places like Tang Village in this day and age, there were still people living in poverty. But no matter what era it was, there was no lack of people who wanted to live a good life, and they also lived a good life. For example, Zhang Yuanwei's family. When the entire county was in famine, Zhang Yuanwei could not eat meat every day. This was the difference. Rather than earning money from ordinary people in this era, it would be better to earn money from these officials and nobles. They did not lack money to buy a chicken. One had to know that her chickens were so expensive. Whoever ate them would be considered noble. Of course, during this period of time, he could not avoid using some methods. He just had to go to the city and spend some money. It was not a difficult matter. Moreover, the chickens that she raised on a free-range basis would definitely taste different if she brought them out for walks every day. Those who were the pickiest would be able to tell the difference as soon as they ate it. When Shi Xingshan heard Tangua's question, he nodded with a heavy expression. Indeed. Although there aren't any big chicken farmers, there are a lot of livestock farmers. Moreover, they are all from big families. The restaurants have been booked in advance. They would deliver it regularly to those who needed it. It can be said that the boss's decision to raise chickens this time was a little impulsive. No, it's not impulsive at all. Our chickens are different. If you eat the chickens I raise here, you will become more noble. Ordinary people can't afford it. Ordinary people don't have the spare money to eat chickens often. Like wear fast, female supporting character, calm down please bookmark, female supporting character, calm down please bookmark, female supporting character, calm down. Chapter 2874. Even if they want to eat it, don't they have it at home? They will probably slaughter one during the new year. Our chickens are specially raised for those rich people. Not only must the meat be delicious, but they must also be beautiful and comfortable to look at. Shi Xingshan was stunned when he heard this. Could it be like this? Although he had met all kinds of people, they belonged to the middle and lower class. He did not understand how the rich people lived in this world. Boss, will there really be people who will buy it? He could already guess that the price of the chicken would be much higher than that of ordinary chickens. It would be at least 3 times higher. After all, they were raising such expensive chickens. Little did he know that Tangua had classified the chickens she raised into different grades in her heart. The most beautiful one, which did not have any illness, must be a first-class chicken. Shi Xingshan could not change Tangua's decision. Anyway, his boss seemed to be very rich and did not seem to care about money. Then he would do as he was told. It was his first time being a housekeeper. He had to explore and learn slowly. Tangua was a chicken farmer here and swore to raise the most expensive chickens in this era. On the other hand, Tang did not have a good time after Tangua left. If it were not for those 2 dreams, she might be immersed in her family's love for her. Now that she knew the truth, no matter how much the family doted on her and left everything to her, it was only a burden to her. However, she had to accept their kindness. If she accepted their kindness, no matter how bad they were to Tangua, she had no right to hate them. Madame Li and Madame Wu cared about her every day. They also bought her beautiful beaded flowers and made beautiful clothes for her. Madame Wu even gave her the bronze mirror that had been with her for her whole life. This was the only bronze mirror in the Tang family. She could feel the envious eyes of her aunt and mother. Perhaps they were reborn and thought that this thing should be given to her. Even if they liked it, they did not show any intention of wanting it. Her 2 cousins' expressions were much more obvious. Their eyes were filled with jealousy, and every time they saw her, they didn't have a good expression. Madame Wu had found out many times that the 2 of them had thrown a tantrum at her. In front of everyone, she had asked the aunt to discipline the 2 cousins. At that time, she knew that she had 2 more opponents in this family. Although she didn't want to be their enemy at all, they wouldn't understand. She was the one who had stolen everyone's attention, including the love and care of her cousin and her mother, Madame Zhang. If it were anyone else, they probably wouldn't be able to take it. Time passed quickly. The first batch of chickens raised by Tangua had grown up and started laying eggs. She had asked someone to cook the first egg that the chicken laid for that little fool to eat. This is the first egg in the chicken farm. You can have it. Tangua peeled off the eggshell, put the egg into a bowl, and pushed it to Shengyin. Try it. Is it good? In fact, after the first egg, many more eggs had been laid. Shengyin looked at the white and shiny egg in the bowl. It was still steaming, and his eyes showed a look of desire. Shi Xingshan thought that this little fool was going to eat it. Unexpectedly, he pushed the bowl in front of Tangua and said foolishly, "Wife, eat first." Wife, eat first? Shi Xingshan was a little dumbfounded. Where did this little fool learn this from? How could he call her wife? Like fast crossover, female supporting role, calm down please bookmark, female supporting role, calm down please bookmark, female supporting role, calm down. Chapter 2875. Tangwa didn't expect it either. She didn't teach the little fool like that. She wasn't that shameless. System, the host is lying. What did you call me? Tangwa patted Xing Yin's face. Little fool, what did you call me just now? Xing Yin didn't even try to dodge. His eyes were still sparkling as he looked at Tangwa. Wife? Who allowed you to call me that? Xing Yin shrunk his neck. Although he was a little silly, he was still very afraid that she would get angry. He stole a glance at her. Sheng Yin said weakly, they said that after getting on the bridal sedan and getting married, I should call you wife. Who is it? At this moment, Shi Xingshan coughed lightly and said, Boss, it should be those children playing house outside the courtyard. They often play with the bride and groom bowing to each other. It is probably because he heard this that the young master called you wife. If boss doesn't like it, I'll have a good talk with young master. After Shi Xingshan said this, Tangwa noticed that Xing Yin's expression became very aggrieved. It was as if he was bullied by someone. Woof. Sheng Yin pushed the bowl closer and continued to say foolishly, it's cold and fishy. It's not good anymore. Shi Xingshan, you really know how to do that. Who did you learn it from? Tangwa smacked Xing Yin's head hard. In the future, you're not allowed to learn things from outsiders. If I find out that you're randomly learning things, I'll throw you away. Then, Xing Yin's eyes reddened. Tears welled up in his eyes as he looked pitifully at Tangwa. His hand was still holding on to her clothes, as if he was afraid of being thrown away. System, damn, this guy is really stupid. It's good that he's a fool. He's a fool, but he can still cry. How inhumane. Tangwa took out her handkerchief and wiped Xing Yin's tears. I'll let it go this time. Shi Xingshan finally understood. If boss didn't pamper this little fool, would she let him eat the first egg that was laid? Speaking of which, boss's taste was really strange. Woof. Half each. Shi Xingshan, I think he's the extra one. Let's go. Looking at how they're splitting the eggs, I don't think he has a share. System, he should leave as well. Even if he has a share, he won't be able to eat it. He's just a pitiful little Tongzi, a Tongzi without a body, and a Tongzi who has to be fed dog food every day. The chickens in the mountains had begun to lay eggs one after another. Every chicken, according to Tangwa's instructions, was taken care of very well. Each and every one of them had shiny feathers, and the hens laid eggs every day on time. At daybreak, the rooster crowed. Before this, Tangwa had already inspected the capital. After a period of time, she would be promoting her chickens to the outside world. Gong Jinglin had been denying the 2 dreams he had at the inn. He did not want what had happened in reality to be the same as what had happened in his dreams. He had also avoided the dangers inside and even changed his route. He originally thought that if he avoided all these and changed his route, he would be able to finish his business and return to the capital. He did not expect that after avoiding the dangers in his dreams, the dangers that should come would still come. It seemed that he could not escape the fate in his dreams and was actually injured. In a daze, he escaped to the familiar place in his dreams. Perhaps it was because he believed in that dream, but he actually lay there at ease. Until the sound of light footsteps sounded, and then a wisp of fragrance reached the tip of his nose. It was the smell in his dreams. How strange. He could actually remember what the person in his dreams smelled like. When Tang Ying saw Gong Jinglin lying there, her eyes were also filled with complicated emotions. Initially, she was still hesitating, but when she really saw Gong Jinglin, she could no longer ignore him. Like transmigration, female supporting character, calm down please bookmark, female supporting character, calm down please bookmark, female supporting character, calm down 7. Chapter 2876. Tang Ying saved Gong Jinglin. When Gong Jinglin was carried into the cave, he subconsciously relaxed his body and fainted. Since he could not avoid the dream that night despite all his efforts, he might as well accept reality and take things one step at a time. At least, the endings in both dreams were not wrong. He was not resigned to his fate. He just felt that the young lady in the village called Tang Ying was not bad. She was as pure as she was in his dreams. He was used to fighting and scheming. Other than his trusted subordinates, this was the first time he could peacefully faint beside someone without fear of being schemed against. Even if there were a lot of troublesome things in his dreams, it was not as if he could not solve them. If he could not avoid them, he could secretly solve them behind his back. As for this young lady who was destined to be with him, since he had met her, he would not avoid her. Tang Ying was thinking the same thing as Gong Jinglin. She was thinking the same thing. Since she was still here, she could not bear to leave Gong Jinglin here when she met him. Since they had already met, she did not avoid him like how she avoided snakes and scorpions. Speaking of which, in both dreams, Gong Jinglin was the only person who was willing to protect her behind his back. Even if he brought her to the capital, given her status, there would be many obstacles for her to be with him. No matter what threats he encountered, he would never compromise for his own status. Instead, he wanted to protect her well and not let anyone hurt her. He wanted to face the pressure from the outside world himself. Although she did not have a high status, she still had good medical skills. She could be of some help to him. After thinking it through, Tang Ying did not want to avoid him anymore. Let nature take its course. If she still liked Gong Jinglin would also like her. In this strange world, it was not bad to have someone to lean on. Tanguo, who was far away in the capital, had already negotiated with the bosses of several big restaurants regarding her chickens and eggs. In order to promote her chickens and eggs, she even personally cooked and showed them to them. How should these chickens and eggs be cooked to taste good? She did not do much with the eggs. She had them boil them in rice. Eggs boiled in rice water tasted the best. She also told the owner of the restaurant that the eggs could not be cooked for too long or too short. If it was cooked for too long, the eggs would not be tender. If it was cooked for too short a time, the eggs would not be cooked. Some people would not be able to stand the sweet eggs. If there were people with special requirements, the cooking time could be shortened. In order to promote her eggs, she went all out. She even told the other party about the heat and time. The restaurant owner also listened attentively. Not only did he listen attentively, but after eating the eggs cooked by Tanguo, he also called the chef of the restaurant to listen and learn. Tanguo didn't feel that she had suffered a loss by telling them these little secrets. Anyway, she could earn back what she had lost from them in the future. This small egg is really different after Mr. Tang's treatment. The boss of a restaurant couldn't hold back and ate 3 eggs in one go. If it weren't for the fact that he knew he couldn't stand it anymore, he would have eaten a few more. I heard from Boss Tang that your chickens are raised in the mountains and you drive them out for a walk every day? Tanguo nodded. Not only do I walk them, but I also trim and comb their feathers regularly. I strive to make every chicken not only delicious but also beautiful. Chapter 2877. Then, Tanguo told more about the situation of the chicken farm. The restaurant owner was amazed. Later, Tanguo asked Shi Xingshan to bring up the 2 chickens. They were kept in a very beautiful cage. When the cloth was untied, the restaurant owner's eyes lit up when he saw the shiny and soft feathers of the 2 chickens. Many of the chickens raised by farmers, when they were sent to the restaurant, their claws were tied with grass and placed into baskets casually. There was even a lot of chicken feces on the feathers. In short, they looked a little dirty. In the past, they didn't think much of it. After all, the feathers of the chickens would be plucked and cleaned. What they needed was not feathers, but chicken. Now, when he saw the 2 chickens taken out by Tanguo, the restaurant owner dispelled his previous thoughts. He always felt that the dishes in his restaurant were missing something. Even the delicacies from some places made him feel that they were not good enough. In other words, he wanted to sell some expensive dishes because the raw materials were not good enough. In addition, the dishes were not new enough, so he couldn't make a lot of money. The high officials and nobles didn't care about that little money at all. Some restaurants in the capital often introduced some new things. It was very attractive to those high officials and nobles. Their restaurants were the same, but the new things always lacked stamina. After a while, they would not be fresh anymore. The chickens provided by Tanguo were not only for eating, but also for those high officials and nobles to admire. While admiring, he could also tell the high officials and nobles the story of the Tang family's chicken farm. He could tell them how the lives of these chickens were raised in such a delicate way. With such delicate chickens, the high officials and nobles who did not lack money would think that they would be promoted to a higher level after eating a bite. What kind of delicacies could be compared with the chickens raised in such a delicate way? The restaurant owner's mind was working quickly, but of course, he still kept his composure on the surface. He just said, "The appearance of Boss Tang's chickens is really beautiful. I have to say that the color of the feathers of these two chickens is glossy. At first glance, I can tell that they are raised well. But these chickens are for eating after all. If it's just for looking good, it's putting the cart before the horse." In fact, he just wanted to let Tangwa show off her skills again and see if he could get some secrets from her. "If Boss Su is willing to order 100 chickens from my family, I can give you a recipe on how to cook meat. This recipe will only be provided to Boss Su's restaurant. It's unique." Hearing this, Boss Su was a little tempted. "Boss Tang, you really know how to do business. Your chicken isn't cheap, is it? I don't know how much it would cost to order 100 of them. It's a little expensive, but my chicken is worth the price." "I won't listen to Mr. Tang's one-sided story," Boss Su said. He really underestimated this young lady. He didn't expect her to be so calm. Even at this time, she wasn't anxious at all. In fact, he was a little anxious. As long as what Tangwa said about raising chickens was true, the taste of the chicken should not be too bad. The story of the Tang family's chicken farm was enough to attract many high officials and nobles. "If Boss Su is free, why don't you come to my Tang chicken farm the day after tomorrow? When the time comes, we will entertain you with the most delicious chicken." Mr. Su understood what he meant. "So, Boss Tang has invited others?" "Boss Su, to be honest, I have invited all the big restaurants in the capital." Boss Su was speechless. Chapter 2878. I have a lot of methods on how to cook meat. If Boss Su is interested, you can come to the chicken banquet the day after tomorrow. This time, Boss Su didn't want to refuse. He had heard of a fish banquet, but he hadn't heard of a chicken banquet. He really wanted to see what she could make chicken. For this, Boss Su agreed. Boss Su was actually the last restaurant owner that Tangwa met. After the discussion, the sky was almost dark, so they returned to the remote house in the city. At the door of the house, she could faintly see a person standing there. She got off the carriage and walked over. Who else could it be but Xing Yin? "System, how much does my little wife want to wait for her husband to come back?" He knew that this time, that guy took the script upside down. "Little fool, why are you standing at the door? There are so many mosquitoes outside. Aren't you afraid of being bitten?" Tangwa walked in front of Xing Yin and heard the buzzing of mosquitoes. She also saw Xing Yin holding hands and leading her in. Under the candlelight, she saw that his hands were bitten several times. Sure, Xingshan didn't know what to say. His young master was a little foolish, but he was better than those smart people when it came to wooing girls. Look, just standing at the door and being bitten by mosquitoes for a while attracted all the attention of the boss. If he knew this little fool when he was young and learned a thing or two, he might have a house full of children and grandchildren. "Wife, let's eat." Tangwa applied some medicinal wine for Xing Yin. When she heard his words, she couldn't help but pat his head. "Next time, you have to wait at the door. Ask someone to move a chair outside and apply some medicinal wine on your hands. Also, ask someone to burn some mugwort at the door. The mosquitoes won't dare to bite you then." After saying this, she remembered that Xing Yin's brain wasn't very bright. He probably didn't know how to order people around. Moreover, when he was waiting outside, the servants in the house didn't move at all. It was obvious that they were useless. "Housekeeper, hire 2 more people tomorrow. For the 2 at home, give them money and let them go." Sure, Xingshan had already thought of this and planned to mention it to Tangwa later. It should be because the boss was busy with the chicken farm and neglected the situation in the house. When they went to the chicken farm, the boss could still bring the young master along, but when they went to the restaurant to discuss business, the boss didn't bring him along. In the future, when we go out to discuss things, take the little fool with us. "Housekeeper, you can choose 2 people, 1 old maid and 1 young manservant." Let the old maidservants take care of the courtyard, and the manservant will follow us out to take care of the little fool. System, he wants to be a little idiot too. Yes, boss. Shi Xingshan agreed and planned to ask someone to prepare the meal. At present, there was only an old woman and a manservant in the house. He went to the kitchen and came back with an ugly expression. Boss, old Madam Chen didn't cook. There doesn't seem to be any leftovers in the kitchen. I guess she didn't cook at noon either. Tangua's eyes turned cold. She looked back at Xing Yin and pinched his face. Little fool, are you hungry? Being stared at so seriously by Tangua, Xing Yin quickly nodded. I'm hungry. Why didn't you tell me that you were hungry? Xing Yin didn't say anything, and Tangua didn't blame him. The old maidservants and manservants in the house probably knew that Xing Yin wouldn't take the initiative to say these things, so they were lazy and didn't cook lunch for him. She didn't treat them badly. It was just that she was a little busy these days. She was running around, and she took Xing Yin with her because she was afraid that he would follow her. Chapter 2879. She had already decided to bring him along wherever she went in the future. Who asked him to be such a fool? I'll make you something delicious later. System, he also wants to eat and be pampered by the host. He can even become a fool. Housekeeper, tell them to scram immediately. Little fool, do you like boiled eggs or egg custard? Shi Xingshan's heart trembled. He saw Tangua smiling while talking to Xing Yin. When she told the two to scram, her tone was so cold. He couldn't help but twitch his mouth. He didn't know how the boss did it. The first half of the sentence was so cold, but the second half was so warm. Shi Xingshan didn't think too much about it. He turned around to deal with the two lazy servants who didn't take care of his young master. The two of them shouted that they wanted to see Tangua and ask for their wages. They were thrown out by Shi Xingshan. Do you still want your wages? You took advantage of the boss' absence and neglected your wages. It's already good that the boss didn't ask me to beat you. Hurry up and scram. Ask the boss to come out. If he sees you, he might find you asking for a beating. Back then, he had seen these two people as honest people. Since they had fled to the capital, he had felt compassion for them and had asked the master to take them in. He had asked them to take care of the house, provide them with shelter, food, and wages. They had let them down like this. Thinking of this, Shi Xingshan felt that he wasn't qualified as a housekeeper. Seeing that the two of them still wanted to cause trouble, he walked out and stomped his foot. He stomped a small hole in the ground right at the entrance, scaring the two of them. They quickly ran away. This was his first mistake as a housekeeper. He must learn from it in the future. He couldn't recruit some shady people just because he sympathized with them. This time, he was lazy and didn't cook for his young master. If some bad people sneaked in next time and caused bigger consequences, it would be his fault. He would really let down the boss's trust. Shi Xingshan turned around and found Tangua in the kitchen, who was making egg custard for Xing Yin. Xing Yin was helping Tangua with the fire. His young master was an idiot, but whenever he met his master, he would always do something incredible without anyone teaching him. System, you old man, of course you don't understand. This guy has always been cheating. Boss, it won't happen again. Tangua looked up and nodded. It's good that you've learned your lesson. But this time, you've made the little fool suffer, so your salary for this month is gone. Shi Xingshan hurriedly nodded his head, indicating that he should do so. He still felt that the boss's punishment was too light. Looking at Xing Yin staring at the egg soup in the pot, he felt very guilty. At Xing Yin's request, Tangua shared the egg soup with him. Butler, you can cook your own noodles or boiled eggs. Shi Xingshan replied, Don't worry, boss. I will take good care of myself. Wasn't it just a matter of cooking for a mature butler? It wasn't a problem for him. He didn't dare to ask the boss for food. The only person who could make the boss cook food, other than the restaurant that promoted the chicken, was the young master. Shi Xingshan cooked egg noodles to eat. It was delicious, but the smell of egg soup always came from the tip of his nose, making him almost cry. As the saying goes, fortune favors fools. Shi Xingshan, who had learned his lesson, went to pick reliable people the next day. After picking and choosing, he felt that hiring servants and maids wasn't reliable. The most reliable ones were those who were willing to sign a contract to sell themselves. Chapter 2880. Shi Xingshan finally understood why no one wanted him when he fled to the new county, even though he had some knowledge. Small families couldn't afford to hire him. One more person meant one more mouthful of food, which was also a kind of burden. Unless he signed a contract to sell himself to a wealthy family, they wouldn't trust him. For example, the old woman and the servant who were driven away by him yesterday. He also carefully inquired about it. In those large families, even the servant girls who did rough work would sign a contract to sell themselves. Generally, there were two kinds of contracts. One was a living contract, which could be redeemed in the future. The other was a death contract. Once signed, one would be regarded as a servant of the family. But those who could afford to eat were not willing to sign a contract to sell themselves. There were also some who would sell their daughters to large families as servant girls for their sons. Those who were kind would sign a living contract, while those who were cruel would sign a death contract. In the end, Shi Xingshan went out of the city to see those who fled the city due to the famine. There were many people who had the same purpose as him. They were all looking for people. After observation, he chose a good-looking old woman and a young man. They were mother and son. Because many people didn't want an old woman, but they were unwilling to be separated. Large families were not doing charity. It was impossible for them to bring back an old woman just because they wanted a young man. Shi Xingshan happened to be short of an old woman. He asked if they were willing to sign a death contract. Since they were willing, he brought them back. That afternoon, Tanguo took Xingyin to the chicken farm. There were farmers at the foot of the mountain. Many farmers' women were working in her chicken farm. Because she wanted to entertain the restaurant owners, she had asked these farmers to lend her place. She wouldn't let them use it for free. They had already washed the tables, chairs, stools, pots, bowls, ladles, and basins and prepared them. That day, Tanguo asked people to catch chickens. Because it was summer, she didn't dare to kill them in advance. She would ask people to kill the chickens the next morning. By the time those restaurant owners came over, they would have already prepared everything. She was definitely the one who was cooking. The farmers helped her clean up the chickens, and then she was busy in the kitchen alone. No, there was also a little fool, Xingyin, who was helping her with the fire. "Little fool, your fire is pretty good." Shi Xingshan, who was standing at the door, was speechless when he heard this. Beside him stood a young man. It was the manservant that he had bought from outside the city yesterday. He was honest and had a strong build. After his observation, this young man was reliable. Just like now, when he was asked to stand guard at the door, the young man stared outside with a determined gaze. His gaze didn't even shift, and he wasn't curious about anything on the other side. When it was close to noon, the owners of the restaurants finally arrived. The housekeeper invited them in from outside. From afar, Boss Su and the others could smell the aroma of meat, which made them drool. When all the chicken dishes were served and Tanguo introduced them one by one, everyone was very serious. Every time they ate a dish made of chicken, their eyes lit up. She couldn't wait to ask Tanguo to give them the recipe for the chicken. To be honest, they had never eaten such delicious chicken in their entire lives, not to mention the fact that they owned restaurants. Especially the chicken soup, it was simply the best in the world. If a boss is willing to order 100 chickens today, not only will I give you a unique chicken recipe, but I will also give you a recipe for the soup for free. Of course, this recipe is not unique. However, only those who order chickens today will give it to you. Tanguo revealed a meaningful smile. If one of you is willing to share it with the other bosses for free, as long as one of you orders 100 chickens, the recipe for the chicken soup can also be shared. Boss Su and the others looked at each other. Sure? Forget it. Who would be willing to share? The recipe for the chicken soup was not for free. There was no way to take advantage of it. The only way to give the chicken soup is to order chickens today. In fact, at this time, there was no doubt about everything. While everyone was still thinking, Tanguo said, those who order first can choose the chicken recipe first. The recipe is unique. You know that. If it is chosen, it will be gone. Boss Su and the others cursed secretly. Profiteer. Chapter 2881. Today, Tangwa had prepared more than 20 different types of chicken for the banquet. Each of them had a different cooking method and taste. It could be said that they could become a restaurant's specialty dish, especially since the Tang family's method of raising chickens. If word of it got out, the rich and powerful would definitely book their VIP rooms in advance. With the recipe of the chicken, they would have more room to operate. They could even use different types of chicken to make different dishes. Only the rich and powerful would be able to eat the best dishes. Whether it was talking about it or treating them, it would be very dignified. They might even ask someone to do something for them and treat them to a meal. They had already eaten the chicken banquet. It was a delicacy. If they spread the news, everyone's recipes would be different. They wouldn't have to worry about stealing each other's business. When the time came, they could even work together to create some news. That would be a win-win situation. However, the price that Tangwa offered was really high. They wondered if they could lower the price. However, Tangwa wouldn't lower a single cent. She even said that she had already given them a unique recipe. If they were to lower the price, her chickens would be wasted. Raising these chickens had consumed a lot of her energy and financial resources. Boss Sue and the others also understood this, but they still wanted to observe the place where the chickens lived. After eating, they could go for a walk to digest the food. Tangwa agreed and brought Boss Sue and the others to the mountain to see the chickens. The mountain that she had rented with money was surrounded by fences. She even hired people and raised dogs to watch the chickens. She also set up traps around the area. She wasn't afraid that someone would come and steal from them. When Boss Sue and the others saw the condition of the chickens with their own eyes, they didn't hesitate to order 100 chickens. Boss Sue was the first to speak. He had already taken a fancy to one of the chicken dishes. When he opened his mouth and ordered, the other bosses were a little annoyed. Why didn't they hurry up? Then they started to choose the chickens. The chickens raised by the Tang family's chicken farm were all beautiful and delicious. The group of restaurant owners stood outside and looked at the chickens that were catching insects to eat. They stretched out their fingers and pointed at them. Whenever they pointed to a chicken, Tangwa would ask someone to mark it. When they needed it, she would send someone to deliver fresh chickens to them. From here to the city, it would only take an hour at the fastest. If it wasn't too long, they could still send people to pick it up. Using this kind of style might be able to attract those delicious mouths. That day, the bosses asked their men to bring back 10 chickens, and the rest were raised at Tangwa's place. They planned to use the 10 chickens to make a name for themselves. There were quite a lot of nobles who came to eat in their restaurant every day. As long as he served this dish to one of the nobles and offered something like half price, if the dish was delicious, it would definitely attract the other nobles. Shi Xingshan was dumbfounded as he watched the restaurant owners leave in a grandiose manner. Just a moment ago, their faces were filled with pain, but now, they were rushing back with excitement and urgency. It could be seen that they were very satisfied with today's trip. In a short period of time, his boss had sold all the chickens in the chicken farm. The reason why they didn't sell eggs for the time being was that Tangwa planned to hatch chicks. In addition, she needed to raise a fixed number of hens to hatch chicks. It was also because of the conditions. It wasn't as convenient as it was in the modern world. There was a certain chance of failure when a hen hatches a chick. Chapter 2882. She could guarantee that these restaurants would order her chickens in the future. So, she decided to keep the eggs for the time being to hatch chicks. Once she turned around and hatched chicks, she would be able to sell her eggs without any worries. Tangwa held her chin. She had to go back and think about it. When the time came, she would give them all the recipes to make steamed egg custard based on the number of orders they signed. She could think of many recipes to make steamed egg custard in an instant. Boss, congratulations. The chicken farm is finally on the right track, Shi Xingshan said happily. These days, his boss had been throwing money into the farm like crazy. He was scared out of his wits just by looking at it. If they couldn't recoup their investment, it would be a big loss. It's still far from my goal, Tangwa said with a smile. Since she had decided to run a chicken farm, she had to do it to the best of her ability. She wanted to be the best chicken farmer in this dynasty. Her chickens and dogs would be the best. Even the officials and nobles would think that her chickens were a luxury food. When people talked about the Tang family's chickens, they would look at her with envy. Anyone who could taste the Tang family's chickens would be envied. Those who ate the Tang family's chickens would be praised as rich people. At that time, no matter if they were rich or small, they would be proud to eat the Tang family's chickens. In fact, some people's wish was to eat a bite of Tang Kor's chicken. Her chickens were not for sale. They could only order at least 100 chickens. After setting the threshold, the quality of the chickens increased. When Shi Shanshan heard Tanggua's words, he was stunned. How could it be like this? His boss was really good at doing business. He couldn't help but think of the day when his boss left family Tang village. He wondered if that family would regret it when they found out about his boss's achievements in the future. He just couldn't understand how that family could bear to spoil such a good girl like his boss. If they hadn't gone overboard, his boss wouldn't have come up with such a method to sever ties with them. 150 taels. Everyone in the village knew that this was how much the Tang family had sold their daughter. If they were really going to marry off their daughter, would they not have any etiquette on the day of the wedding and just let people carry her away in a small sedan chair? Butler, let's go back. You have to sort out the accounts of all the bosses. Don't worry, boss. Shi Xingshan was still very cautious when it came to these matters. The fact that the boss had entrusted such an important task to him meant that he trusted him. Tanggua went into the house and found Xing Yin playing alone. She walked over and touched his head. Little fool, let's go home. She saw that Xing Yin had been sitting obediently on the stool the whole time. He had almost finished all the chicken snacks she had made for him on the table. From the looks of it, he really did listen to her and didn't go out. Wife, can we go home now? You can go home now. Tanggua took out a handkerchief and threw it to him. Wipe your mouth. The corners of your mouth are oily. What Tanggua didn't expect was that Xing Yin didn't wipe it himself. Instead, he stuffed the handkerchief into her palm and moved closer to her, indicating that he wanted her to help. When Tanggua saw this, she was a little amused. Where did you learn this from? Tanggua wiped the corners of Xing Yin's mouth. You're a little fool. How did you learn this so quickly? System, because I used a cheat. Xing Yin didn't say anything. He only looked at Tanggua with a pair of clear eyes. He was as innocent as he could be. Chapter 2883. Tanggua had asked Shi Xingshan to find out if there had been any major incidents in the capital. For example, she wanted to know which family's young master had gone missing. Unfortunately, there wasn't any. The surname of the country was Gong, not Sheng. The male lead, Gong Jinglin, was a member of the royal family. He was a capable prince but came from an ordinary background. Although there weren't many families with the surname Sheng in the capital, there were still some. There were several families, both big and small, with the surname Sheng. Shi Xingshan had asked around and found that there was no one named Xing Yin in these families. Xing Yin's clothes and the jade pendant hanging around his neck were not ordinary. The place where he used to live should have a good status. In the original plot, the name Xing Yin did not appear. Since she couldn't find him, Tanggua didn't force him. Anyway, she didn't lack food. She could afford to raise a little fool, especially one who was very obedient. Shi Xingshan was used to how well Tanggua treated Xing Yin. He was afraid that the two new servants would offend Xing Yin. Previously, he had specially reminded them how important he was in Tanggua's heart. In fact, even if he didn't remind them, the new servants and young men were very respectful to their master. Someone finally took them in, gave them food to eat, and even got paid. They couldn't be more grateful. Moreover, their master was a young lady who didn't treat people harshly. To them, this was like a pie falling from the sky. Just as Tanggua thought, the owners of the restaurants gathered together after they went back and planned to hype up the Tang family's chicken. They joined forces to announce their new dishes to the public. Because each restaurant's dishes were unique, they even made a joint announcement between the restaurants. When the time came, each restaurant would invite their regulars to the restaurant. It took a few days just to warm up the dishes. On the day of the event, everyone in the capital knew that these big restaurants were joining forces to hold a new dish event. It was said that they would give out chicken soup according to the amount of food and wine they ate in the restaurant. The only pity was that the new dishes of the restaurants were too expensive and ordinary people couldn't afford them. However, the officials and nobles who came to watch the event would definitely participate. The dishes in each restaurant were different, and they were all unique. For this reason, they all chose to go to the restaurant they were interested in. As for those who didn't go, they remembered them and planned to go again in 2 days. Under the envious gazes of countless people, these nobles were invited to various restaurants. At the venue of the event, Tangkor's chickens were still on display. Looking at those good-looking chickens with shiny, smooth, and clean feathers, he couldn't help but sigh. Even their claws were not like the ugly scars of ordinary chickens that had been bitten by mosquitoes and insects. Such a chicken was pleasing to the eye just by looking at it. Since it was so clean, he could eat it without worry. Everyone in the capital knew that chicken could be sold this way. Because of this, everyone in the capital knew about Tang family's chickens. Mr. Su and the others came back to their senses and patted their heads speechlessly. This Mr. Tang is too calculative. In the end, the biggest winner is still her. Yeah, he's already so crafty at such a young age. I wonder which family raised him. From Tangwa's temperament, they all thought that she was a woman raised by some large merchant family. Chapter 2884. With the efforts of the various restaurants, Tang family's chicken became extremely popular. Although the various restaurants knew that Tangwa had set them up, they had no choice but to fall into her trap. For example, many nobles had come to book private rooms in advance after tasting their new dish. It was obvious that they had ordered that dish. Although it was a little expensive, the number of people who ordered the dishes did not decrease. Instead, it increased. They felt that their previous efforts were worth it. There were also some people who could not order the dishes. Even if they broke their legs, there was nothing they could do. Now, the VIP rooms had been booked until a month later. In order to make something precious, the people in the various restaurants were all smart and did not intend to increase the number of people. If there were really nobles who they could not afford to offend, the restaurants would prepare 1 or 2 of the most prestigious private rooms. They were not afraid that they would not be able to handle it. Boss, someone from the Li family has come to order chicken. I heard that Lord Li loves to eat chicken. He knew that he could order chicken from us because he could not get in line at the restaurant. So, he sent someone over. Although it was not as delicious as the ones made in the restaurants, the taste of Tang family's chicken was definitely different. Lord Li had specially asked someone to inquire about it and ordered 100 chickens without hesitation. This level of generosity was truly not something that an ordinary person could do. 100 chickens were not cheap. Okay, ask Lord Li if he likes to eat egg custard. If he likes it, we can give him a recipe for egg custard. Tangwa recalled Lord Li in her mind and confirmed with Shi Xingshan whether it was the Lord Li in her mind. In the end, it was indeed the first-rank official in the imperial court. It was mentioned in the plot that he loved to eat chicken. It was easier to make a few friends in the capital. She had a lot of recipes for egg custard, so she would give it to him. Because she had given the recipes to the restaurant, it would be a conflict if she gave another recipe. The owners of the restaurant were big business partners. It was good enough that she gave them the recipe for egg custard. Lord Li's servant only took 2 chickens back and raised the rest at Tangwa's place. When she needed them, she would come back to get them. Since Lord Li could eat 1 chicken in 1 or 2 days, he could use up 100 chickens in about half a year. As time passed, more and more nobles came to order chickens. When Tangwa saw that the farmers were too busy, she understood that the orders could not be released anymore. In the end, she even decided how many chickens she would sell in half a year. She also said that this was due to the conditions of raising chickens. In order to raise chickens that tasted better, she couldn't keep hatching chickens just because there were many people who wanted to buy chickens. That would be disrespectful to the customers who trusted her. Therefore, no matter whether they had ordered or not, they did not make things difficult for her. That's right. If it could be bought so easily, would this chicken still be rare? For this reason, the restaurant had no choice but to limit their sales. Although it was a little troublesome and the sales seemed to be decreasing, more and more people were coming to the restaurant to eat. Since they couldn't eat the chickens raised by the Tang family, They could eat ordinary chickens to satisfy their cravings. Tangua's chicken farm was thriving. When many people couldn't find a way to order chickens, she launched Tang's eggs. After the launch, orders came in an endless stream. If he ordered eggs, it would start at 100. Eggs were much cheaper than chickens, and some small families could afford to eat them. No matter what, these were eggs laid by Tang's chickens. They would definitely taste better than those outside. Chapter 2885. As a result, many families developed the habit of eating an egg or a bowl of steamed egg soup in the morning. The recipe for steamed egg soup was given to them by the boss of the chicken farm when they ordered the eggs. Although it wasn't a rare thing, not everyone was willing to share it with them outside. The recipe for steamed egg soup that they got from the boss was very detailed. They taught it to the chefs at home. After a few times, the steamed egg soup became very delicious. Just like that, Tang family's chicken farm's position was stabilized and no one could shake it. However, since ancient times, there had always been an endless supply of imitations. This time, Tang family's imitations also appeared. The first to appear were the imitations of Tang family's chickens, followed by the imitations of Tang family's eggs. Some greedy people bought the fake eggs and discovered that there were spoiled eggs inside. In a fit of anger, they sued Tangua. When Tangua heard about this, she was speechless. Only Shi Xingshan was worried. Tang family's chicken farm was in the limelight. He was worried that someone was trying to mess with his boss. If they were really targeting his boss, they must have come prepared. Once everyone believed that there was a problem with the quality of Tang family's eggs and that there were spoiled eggs, their reputation would plummet and all their previous efforts would go to waste. On this day, Tangua was on her way to the court to deal with someone. "Little fool, wait in the carriage and don't wander off." After Tangua told Xingyin, she instructed the servant to keep a close eye on Xingyin before entering the court. The person who sued her was a woman in her 40s. She looked a little mean. As soon as she saw her, she started yelling at her and demanded that she pay for the eggs. She even called her a black-hearted businessman. System. Host, there are people like this in every era. I think someone must be jealous and found someone to mess with you. Apart from this, there was no other possibility. The people in the restaurants were even more unlikely. Because of Tang family's chickens, their restaurants were doing even better than before. Especially now that the Tang group's chickens had already spread to the outside world. The only place where they could eat Tang family's chickens was their restaurants in the capital. Wasn't it a rare thing? They couldn't wait for Tang family's chickens to become more famous, so they could earn more. Silence. The interrogator stopped the woman from making trouble and asked Tangua, "Are you the owner of the Tang's chicken farm, Tangua?" "That's me. Wang Shi accused you of selling Tang's eggs to her at a high price and claiming that half of them were spoiled. Is that true?" Tangua almost laughed out loud. However, they were in court, so she said seriously, "Your Excellency, I've been wronged. My Tang Core only sells fresh eggs. Furthermore, if you want to buy fresh eggs, you have to make a reservation in advance. You can't wait for the eggs to spoil." "Milord, she's talking nonsense. I bought Tang's eggs. She's just trying to earn money. She's bullying us commoners and earning our money. In fact, even if a normal person bought a bad one, they wouldn't think of suing someone. But if there was someone behind this woman, then it was very normal." Silence. "Tangua, do you have any evidence to prove that Wang Shi didn't buy the eggs from you?" After speaking, the interrogator didn't wait for the two women to speak and asked again, "Wang Shi, do you have any evidence to prove that you bought the spoiled eggs from Tang family?" Wang Shi was stunned for a moment before she quickly said, "In any case, I bought the eggs from Tang family. They're not fake. Tang family's chicken farm is a scammer. They only sell spoiled eggs. Your Excellency, you need to get justice for me." Chapter 2886. The official turned to look at Tangua. "Tangua, what about you? I have evidence to prove that the eggs in Wang Shi's hands were not bought from Tangcore." Tangua glanced at Wang Shi. Why didn't these troublemakers find out how Tangcore sold their eggs? Speak. Actually, the official in charge of the trial already knew that Wang Shi was lying from the start. When he received this case, he received a piece of news before the trial. The news was given to him by a first-rank official, Lord Li, who happened to be his teacher. He did not say much and simply told him to investigate this matter thoroughly. He also told him to be fair and honest and not let those filthy things slander those businessmen who ran their chicken farms seriously. At this point, he understood what Lord Li meant. He heard that Lord Li ordered 100 chickens and 500 eggs from Tangkor in one go. Every time he wanted to eat them, he would secretly send someone to fetch fresh eggs. It was said that Tangkor had always sold their chickens and eggs in this way. Tangkor's chickens and eggs were not even enough for these rich people and restaurants. How could they sell them to an ordinary woman? "Milord, our Tang clan's chicken farm, regardless of whether we sell chickens or eggs, we sell at least 100. When we sell them, we need to sign a contract with both parties. If a customer brings 100 chickens back at once, it is inevitable that they will not take good care of them. After a long time, the meat will not taste as good. As for how much they need, the customer can send someone to fetch them a day or two in advance. As for eggs, it is still fine for the restaurant. After all, there are many customers who come to eat every day. Bringing 100 eggs back at once will not affect the quality of the food. But, for the average customer, no matter how big their family is, it is impossible for them to eat 100 eggs at once. There is a time limit to the shelf life of an egg. Once the shelf life is over, the egg will not be fresh and will not taste good. So, when it is time to eat, the customer will come back a day or two in advance to get fresh eggs. This way the eggs will taste the best. As for the eggs in our chicken farm that are over the shelf life, we will use them to make salted eggs, pickled eggs, and preserved eggs. These 3 types of eggs have a long shelf life and taste good. In the near future, Tangkor will be launching these products to the public." The official sitting in the courtroom was speechless. Was this little girl here to fight a lawsuit or to promote her new products? But he was still interested in Tangkor's salted eggs, pickled eggs, and preserved eggs. The taste should be pretty good. Last time at his teacher's place, he was fortunate enough to eat 2 mouthfuls of chicken and 10,000 egg soup. It was indeed delicious. He was looking forward to it. "Milord, as long as someone buys chicken or eggs from our Tang family, both parties will have a contract, and the contract will clearly state what they are buying at the time of purchase. Every time a customer comes to pick up new goods, a new mark will be made on the contract between both parties." "Then did you bring all these contracts?" "I've brought it here. Please take a look, my lord." Tangua asked Shi Xingshan to send a wooden box up. Inside the box was a list of all the orders. Every order was recorded. It was impossible to slander her. She had already expected that there would be such people. "Sir, if you don't believe me, I can ask these guests to testify." At this moment, Shi Xingshan happened to flip to his teacher, Lord Li's contract. When he saw the number, he almost couldn't hold it in. Chapter 2887. Why did the teacher love to eat chicken so much? The last time he ordered 100 chickens, it wasn't enough. Then he ordered so many eggs. He looked at the records. Indeed, there was a record of every delivery. It was all recorded on the contracts. Every time, there was a fingerprint. It was very strict. In fact, there was no need to verify it. But to ensure fairness, he still sent someone to verify it. He heard that Tangua was being sued and was being framed. Originally, those people only needed to send the contracts over for a look. But they couldn't resist the fact that they loved Tangshi's chickens and eggs. So, those who had nothing to do all rushed over. Especially the restaurant owners. They were all business partners and were most afraid that something would happen to Tangua. So, they all came. The courtroom, which was not big to begin with, suddenly had a lot of people. Wang Shi, who was still acting righteous earlier, was so scared that her face turned pale when she saw so many people. In this place, she couldn't even escape. She really wanted to slap herself. It was all her fault for being greedy. If she hadn't been so greedy, there wouldn't be so much trouble. "Wang Shi, do you have the contract that Tangua mentioned in your hands? You wouldn't lose such an important thing, right? I've already looked through these contracts. Your contract isn't among them." Just as Wang Shi opened her mouth and didn't know what to say, the official in the court slammed the gavel on the table and raised his voice. Wang Shi, hurry up and confess. His teacher had said that he had to be fair and honest. He couldn't disappoint those who really raised chickens. He looked at the witnesses in the court. With so many witnesses watching, he definitely had to get to the bottom of this matter to protect his reputation. But he was a little nervous with everyone looking at him. So many of his colleagues were here, and they were all staring at him seriously. He was really nervous. Everyone was on break, but they still came to watch the show. He was the only one who still had to work today. He was mentally exhausted. Of course, Wang Shi couldn't stand such an atmosphere. She liked to take advantage of others, but she wasn't a stubborn person. At that moment, he confessed everything. The person she had confessed to was quickly arrested. In the end, the person who framed Tang Guo was fined and given 30 strokes of the cane. As for Wang Shi, she was also hit 20 times. She was in so much pain that she screamed in pain. After the execution, the two of them were carried back. With so many people watching, every stroke of the plank landed squarely on the ground. Now, he had to go back and recuperate for a while. After that, Tang Guo greeted the others and thanked them, then left. As soon as they left the yamen, Sheng Yin must have seen her. He quickly jumped down, grabbed her sleeve and led her in. Little fool, don't worry. Although he was comforted, Sheng Yin did not let go of her. It was as if he could only feel at ease by holding on to her. Tang Guo did not resist and sat in the carriage with him. Shi Xingshan smiled and asked the manservant to drive the carriage. Butler, did you remember all the people who came to testify for me earlier? Boss, I've already noted it down. After staying by Tang Guo's side for so long, what could Shi Xingshan figure out? In 2 days, when they come to pick up the goods, each family will be given 30 eggs. Say that it's a gift to the old customers. Shi Xingshan agreed and kept this matter in mind. Lord Li will give us 60 eggs. Tang Guo said. She had already figured out the relationships of many officials in the court, especially those who appeared in the plot. Chapter 2888. Lord Qin, who was investigating the case today, was Lord Li's student. Lord Qin was so friendly and seemed to trust her. She didn't believe that Lord Li didn't give her a heads up. After this incident, the troublemakers disappeared. Everyone knew that it wasn't easy to bring down Tang Guo. So many people came to testify, but not only did they fail, they also got themselves into trouble. After earning some money, Tang Guo moved to a bigger house. A while ago, the system told her that the male lead, Gong Jinglin, had returned. The reason why he didn't return immediately was because he had secretly gone to settle some matters after he recovered from his injuries. This time, he came back with evidence. He wanted to catch them off guard and deal them a heavy blow. The reason why he didn't bring Tang Ying back was because he didn't think he could protect her well in his current state. He wanted to wait until it was a little safer around her and the hidden enemies were defeated. Only then would he have the confidence to protect her. Ever since he faced reality and met Tang Ying, he realized that if he tried to avoid what happened in the plot again, it wouldn't be as unavoidable as before. After many tests, he even suspected that the reason he couldn't avoid what happened before was because he didn't meet Tang Ying. Tang Ying was the woman he was destined to be with. That was why he tried so hard to let them meet. Now, because of the 2 dreams, he knew a lot of things in advance. As long as he planned well, things would go a lot smoother. Family Tang's family could only stay like this for now. After he settled the matters in Beijing, if they dared to bully Tang Ying, he would torture them to death. After Gong Jinglin returned, he heard about what happened at Tang Guo's chicken farm. This made him a little concerned. After all, the 2 dreams didn't mention anything about Tang Guo's chicken farm. He planned to find some time to investigate the situation at Tang Guo's chicken farm. The dreams weren't necessarily accurate. As long as it wasn't a threat, he wouldn't care. Fate was full of uncertainty. Any change could change a lot. Tang Guo's life was more comfortable now. She would visit the chicken farm every few days. Finally, she realized her dream of a group of hens lining up to lay eggs for her. Shi Xingshan didn't quite understand. His boss had a strange hobby. She loved watching hens lay eggs. Every time she came, She would cook a few freshly laid eggs and eat them. She ate 3 in one sitting. Sheng Yin wanted to eat 5 in one go. Shi Xingshan expressed that ever since he saw so many eggs every day, he would often cook some egg noodles when he was hungry. Now, he no longer wanted to eat eggs. On this day, Tanghua took Sheng Yin to the chicken farm again. The group of people leisurely left the city. Shi Xingshan noticed that there was a carriage following them along the way. It was not a carriage that he recognized, so he told Tanghua about it. "Boss, he must be a guest who came because of his reputation." The steward would go to the chicken farm every day. Although he bought a lot of servants back later, he would still go and keep an eye on them for half a day. When they arrived at the chicken farm, the carriage behind them followed them inside. Tanghua and Sheng Yin got off the carriage, and so did the other party. Both sides stared blankly at each other. It was Tanghua who spoke first. "Young master, you've come from afar. Are you here to buy chickens or eggs?" If he wanted to buy chickens, the orders for this season were already full. He would have to wait until next season. "As for eggs, I do have them." Chapter 2889. Gong Jinglin remembered Tanghua. She was the little girl he had met on the way. At that time, the other party was dressed as a merchant. Now, the Tang family's chicken farm seemed to be her home, so Gong Jinglin did not find it strange. In any case, he did not sense any danger from this little girl, but he still thought that she was not an ordinary person. "Since there are no chickens, let's buy some eggs." Since he was already here, he could not say that he was just here to take a look. This time, his gaze lingered on Sheng Yin for a while. The other party was looking at him with a vigilant expression. That pair of clear and serious eyes were somewhat eye-catching. One could immediately understand what he was thinking. When he saw that Tanghua was holding Sheng Yin's hand, Gong Jinglin understood. Just as he was about to say something, Sheng Yin suddenly said, "Wife, look at me." This time, Gong Jinglin almost could not hold it in. He knew that the other party's brain might not be very bright, but he did not expect the other party to say such a thing. Gong Jinglin was a little impressed. Although a person like him had many things to say to Tang Ying, in the end, he only said that he would definitely pick her up in the future. Was he not very good with words? He was worse than a silly young master. No wonder he and Tang Ying had not started dating when he already had a wife. "All right, it's up to you." Gong Jinglin's eyes were a little shocked. He actually saw a doting look in the little girl's eyes. Was it really different these days? Sheng Yin was satisfied. In his pair of clear eyes, there was only room for Tanghua. His brain was clearly not very bright, but sometimes he knew what to do. At this moment, Gong Jinglin carefully sized up Sheng Yin. His face was undoubtedly very good-looking. However, after looking at him for so long, he felt that he was a little familiar. He carefully recalled the members of the royal family. Although he had many brothers, there was definitely no such person. "I'm Lin Jing. How should I address you?" Gong Jinglin reacted and decided to ask about the other party's surname first. "Tanghua is the boss of the Tang family's chicken farm." Gong Jinglin greeted her and then asked Sheng Yin, "Is this the lady's husband? I don't know how to address you." System, what a joke. His disguise had already been exposed, yet he was still probing. Sheng Yin. Tanghua wasn't lying. Judging from the male lead's words, Sheng Yin seemed a little familiar. If the other party could help her find Sheng Yin's family, that would be the best. Was his surname Sheng? When Gong Jinglin was invited in by Tanghua, he kept thinking about the big families with the surname Sheng in the capital. This was because Sheng Yin didn't look like someone from a small family. Since he felt that Sheng Yin looked familiar, he must be related to him or someone he knew. It was just that he didn't think about it for a moment, so he could only give up. In the end, Gong Jinglin carried 100 eggs back to the palace. With so many eggs, of course, he was going to give them away. She had heard that Tang Corp's chicken and eggs were all the rage in Beijing. Especially chickens, that was a rare thing. However, when Gong Jinglin went to see the emperor, he saw the emperor frowning and looking like he had a headache, so he asked, "It's your aunt's son, who is also your uncle, who is missing. Aunt only has one son, and now she is sending people everywhere to look for him. Your aunt was born with a brain that wasn't very bright. I heard that it was caused by your aunt mistakenly taking medicine back then. Third brother, since you're here, I'll leave this matter to you. You must find him. Chapter 2890. This great elder princess was the emperor's aunt. Speaking of which, she was even younger than he was. When the late emperor was still alive, he was very favored and had a good relationship with him. Fortunately, she helped him back then. Otherwise, he would not have been able to sit in this position. Great elder princess said that she had taken medicine by mistake, causing the child to have problems. In fact, he knew that it must be because the battle back then had angered someone, so they attacked her. Speaking of which, he had let his aunt down. One of the reasons why his aunt helped him was that she and his mother were good friends. Your aunt is so angry that she's sick. She has sent people to the palace several times to ask. Gong Jinglin was stunned. Aunt? Yes, her husband's surname was Sheng. It was just that he had been dead for many years, so he did not think of this for a while. Because his aunt and her husband were very loving, she had no intention of finding another husband after Prince Consort Sheng's death. It was also because her child was not smart and had always been eating and chanting Buddha in the princess's mansion. He had only heard of this aunt, but had never seen her at all. Naturally, he had never seen his uncle who was not smart either. Sheng Yin, whose surname was Sheng, was obviously well raised. Could it be that he was the uncle he had never met? Third brother, why are you in a daze? I'm leaving this matter to you because I'm at ease with you. The emperor was right. He had so many sons, but in fact he had long been biased toward third brother. Although his family background was a little poor, his own family background was not good either. Third brother had both ability and wisdom, and he was almost trained. As for the other few, they could be used as practice for third brother. If he found his cousin this time, it would be considered a meritorious service. Yes, father. After leaving most of the eggs to the emperor, Gong Jinglin went directly to Great Elder Princess's mansion to look for Great Elder Princess. Because Great Elder Princess did not go out and did not accept visiting invitations, he really had not seen him once. After asking about his uncle's appearance and various characteristics, Gong Jinglin finally confirmed that Sheng Yin should be his uncle. Seeing Great Elder Princess's pale face and almost unable to get out of bed, he said in a low voice, "Aunt, if I'm not wrong, the person I met before should be my uncle." Great Elder Princess, who was originally listless, suddenly grabbed Gong Jinglin. "Where is Yin? Take me there quickly." "Your Highness, listen to me carefully." Gong Jinglin was not in a hurry and slowly told Great Elder Princess what he had encountered before. Seeing the surprised look on Great Elder Princess's face, he was also shocked. He was wondering why his father looked so familiar. It turned out that his father resembled his grandaunt a little, especially his eyebrows. His voice was his grandaunt's son, so naturally, they were similar. After hearing this, Great Elder Princess had recovered most of her spiritual strength, and there was a smile in her eyes. "You mean, not only is my Yin-er not injured, but he also found a wife by himself?" Gong Jinglin was a little speechless. Could he not focus on such a strange thing? At first, he thought that his great-aunt was a rigid person. He didn't expect her to be so interesting. If I didn't hear wrongly, that's what Uncle called the little girl back then. The little girl didn't refute and held his hand wherever they went. Uncle seemed to be very protective of her. He even looked at me with a guarded expression. "It's good that you're on guard. After all, you're quite good-looking. My son is just afraid that you'll cheat his wife away. My son is actually not that stupid." Gong Jinglin. Chapter 2891. Gong Jinglin saw that Great Elder Princess was full of smiles, and the anxiety between her eyebrows disappeared. Instead, she was full of smiles, as if she was very satisfied with the result. She leaned against the head of the bed and gently pinched the Buddha beads in her hand. "When Yin-er was born, I found that he was a little stupid, so I went to ask an eminent monk for help. The eminent monk calculated Yin-er's fate and said that Yin-er would face a disaster when he was 15 years old. If he couldn't get through it, he would die. If he could get through it, he would be rich and safe for the rest of his life. In order to help Enr get through this disaster, I didn't go out for more than 10 years and prayed for Enr all day long. Last year, Enr was 15 years old. I was afraid that something would happen to him, so I sent more people. I didn't expect that he would still go missing. I searched everywhere, but I couldn't find him. Great Elder Princess sighed. I was also sick and couldn't get out of bed. I didn't expect you to bring me such good news today. It seems that Enr will get through the only disaster in his life. Yes, Uncle will be blessed. Gong Jinglin didn't believe in fortune-telling in the past, but now he had to believe it. He had relied on the previous 2 dreams to avoid many dangers and know the details of the enemy. Although he knew that he would be the final winner, he still didn't dare to let his guard down at all. Every step he took was steady. This fate was not unchangeable. If he was careless and underestimated the enemy because he knew about the future, the result could also be changed. He would never be at ease until the final result was known. You said earlier that the little girl was the boss of the Tang chicken farm? Yes, in fact, this was the second time I met her. That time, she rushed to the capital from a certain direction. At that time, I also saw Uncle. However, I was in a hurry to do something at that time, so I didn't look carefully and didn't see what happened. When I passed by the chicken farm and heard about it, I wanted to bring some to my father and mother. In the end, I met them. Previously, I was thinking that Uncle looked a little familiar. Later, I went back to the palace to see my father and compared the things before and after. Then I came to find you. In that case, it's really fate. Gong Jinglin felt that Great Elder Princess's illness was almost cured. Her illness was a disease of the heart. Since she had found Uncle, she naturally had to be cured. Great Aunt, do you need me to bring Uncle back? I think you really have bad intentions. My son finally found a wife, and you actually want to separate him from her. Jinglin, are you jealous of my son? He's older than you, but he actually managed to find such a good wife? Knowing that Great Elder Princess was joking, Gong Jinglin just smiled and said, "It seems that you have your own plan. Then I won't interfere in this matter. Previously, Imperial Father ordered me to find Uncle, otherwise he won't let me off. I have to go back and report this matter to Imperial Father. Go back and tell your father not to take it out on the child for everything. I think that you, Jinglin, are not bad. You're such an outstanding child, yet you won't let him off so easily. It's really outrageous. I'll enter the palace another day and have a good chat with him. I've really troubled him with the matter of finding Enr. Thank you, Grand Aunt, for speaking up for Jinglin. Gong Jinglin cupped his hands and left with a smile on his face. He didn't expect this legendary Grand Aunt to be so easy to talk to. She was whatever she was. No wonder she was so respected by his father. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations. Chapter 2892. Walking out of Great Elder Princess's mansion, Gong Jinglin recalled that his uncle had said to the boss of the Tang family, "Wife, look at me." His whole body was a little feverish. His uncle was a fool, but he was quite good in some aspects. At the same time, he also imagined that when he said that he and Tang Ing were alive, the more he thought about it, the hotter his face became. This caused the little eunuch beside him to be curious. Was his master very hot? Thinking about it, he hurriedly fanned Gong Jinglin with his hand. "What are you doing?" "Master, your face is red. Is it because of the heat?" "It must be because of the heat. Otherwise, how could his master's face be red?" "Go away. Let's go back to the palace." Gong Jinglin hurriedly threw out the messy thoughts in his mind. He was not like his uncle. He just thought that in the 2 dreams, although he and Tang Ing were loving and had a family, she accompanied him through ups and downs and survived one crisis after another. He was not good at expressing his feelings. The only thing he could do was to protect her in his arms and ensure that he was there whenever she needed him. His behavior in the dream was indeed very consistent with his personality. However, the way his uncle acted coquettishly to his wife had a different impact on him. It could be said that he even wanted to try getting along with Tang Ing like that in the future. He also wanted to see Tang Ing carefully protect him and dote on him. But what the hell was he thinking? It was so embarrassing. This time, Gong Jinglin put away all his expressions and emptied his mind. Sitting in the carriage, he closed his eyes and did not think about what had happened before anymore. However, his mind was still filled with Tang Ying. Although they had not been separated for long, he somewhat missed those days in the cave. However, there were too many enemies around him now. He did not dare to put her in the open for fear that she would be hurt. He remembered that there would be a plague a few years later and knew about it. At that time, he had no choice but to bring Tang Ying over. He did not know where the source of the plague was, so he still had to bring Tang Ying back in a few years. In this case, he had to make preparations in advance. He also had to get someone to research some anti-plague drugs. Unfortunately, that thing was too terrifying. Even if there were anti-plague drugs, they might not be useful. Even if he said it now, no one would believe him. He could only send someone to keep an eye on it. It would be best if they could find out who had provoked them first and isolate them. Then, they could quickly evacuate the surrounding people. At the same time, Tang Ying knew that there was a plague in her dream. If she didn't know about this, it wouldn't have been a big deal. Now that she knew, many people would die here. She had received a modern education and was also a medical student. She could not sit back and do nothing. Her strength was meager, but even if it was meager, she still wanted to try. The plague was still a few years away, so she could prepare for it during this time. I need to research more about the plague. At the very least, I need to make some preparations. The Tang family members were still so nice to her, but she already had a grudge in her heart and could not accept their kindness without any barrier. They were reincarnated, so they would definitely know about the plague. When the time came, they would probably plan to move away from this place. This was because she had discovered that the family was preparing for this. Previously, when her eldest sister left, the family received 150 taels of silver, but they did not buy too many things. She also inadvertently heard her grandmother, Madame Wu, say not to buy too many things. When they moved, they would not be able to carry them. It would be a pity to throw them away. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Chapter 2893. Tang Ying and Gong Jinglin were both preparing to prevent the possible outbreak of the plague at that time. The members of the family of Tang were also trying their best to dote on Tang Ying. All day long, they hoped that the noble young man would come to pick Tang Ying up. As for Tanggua, who had been sold by them, they had long forgotten about her as if she was a piece of garbage. Tang Ying had been missing Tanggua. However, when her elder sister left, she was penniless and unfamiliar with this place. The members of the family of Tang seemed to be afraid that she would go to Tanggua and kept an eye on her every day. Now she didn't know where her elder sister was. Even if she wanted to find her, she couldn't. Her elder sister had already fallen out with the family of Tang, so it was useless to find her. What a terrible thing. How did she end up encountering it? Tanggua didn't forget the plague. She guessed that the members of the family of Tang would run away at that time. If Tang Ying and Gong Jinglin couldn't prevent and cure the plague, she had to do it. On this day, a plainly dressed guest came to Tanggua's place. She was full of nobility. What do you need? Coincidentally, Tanggua was here. She had to entertain such a guest herself. Do you still have chickens this season? We don't have any left this season. If you want, you can come earlier next season. In addition, if you like eggs, our eggs are also good. There are also some pickled products, which taste very good. The person who came was Great Elder Princess. She wanted to come when she heard about it that day, but she didn't look well at that time. She hadn't recovered from her illness, so she came here. She was afraid that her son and daughter-in-law would be sick. As a matter of fact, after resting for 10 days, she slowly came back. This was indeed a good place. She fell in love with it at first sight. Of course, the place was good, and the people here were even better. She liked the little girl in front of her very much at first sight. She was indeed her Er's little wife. She was smart, capable, and good-looking. Most importantly, according to various sources, this little girl didn't dislike her Although she called him a little fool, she really doted on him. How could Great Elder Princess not be happy that her silly son finally had someone to love him? She looked at Tangua and wondered why this girl had taken a fancy to her silly son. Was there something wrong with his eyesight? If it weren't for her poor eyesight, how could she have taken a fancy to her silly son? With this lady's looks and talent, what kind of husband would she not find? Great Elder Princess looked around and did not see Xing, but she was not worried. Because she had already sent people to scout ahead, her silly son was now like a little wife. He was especially obedient to his wife. When she told him to stay in the house, he waited in the house. He was extremely obedient. It was said that this little girl had even bought a big house in the capital. This reminded her of an illusion, a golden house to hide a mistress. Although she was hiding her silly son, she was very happy. Tangua also realized that something was wrong after being stared at by the other party. In particular, the madam seemed to be more and more satisfied with her, which made her fall into deep thought. What kind of person would be satisfied with her? Madam? Tangua called. Great Elder Princess came to her senses and said, "Then I'll place an order with you. 3,000 eggs." It was her daughter-in-law's chicken farm. As her mother-in-law, she had to support her daughter-in-law. Like to wear fast, female supporting lead, calm down please collect. Wear fast, female supporting lead, calm down. Chapter 2894. It was said that her daughter-in-law bought this mountain at a high price. She would ask her daughter-in-law later if this mountain had been given away. If it hadn't been given away, she would ask the emperor to do her a favor and give this mountain directly to her daughter-in-law and give her a title. The emperor would not refuse such a small thing. She was not greedy for power. She only hoped that her silly son and daughter-in-law could live happily and peacefully after she passed away. Great Elder Princess wanted to order 3,000 eggs, which made Tangua a little happy. She didn't seem to have any malice, so she just let her look at her. But when she was writing the order, she still wanted to inquire about this madam's background when she was free. The way she looked at her was really strange. Suddenly, she thought of Xing. Did this madam have anything to do with Xing? Tangua narrowed her eyes and looked up, only to see Great Elder Princess looking at her kindly with love and affection in her eyes. Tangua's hands couldn't help shaking. Was she really the little fool's family? After writing the order, Tangua paused and asked, "Madam, do you know Xing?" She didn't find out which family Xing was from. She thought that Xing Yin's family should be good to him, so she still wanted to help him find his family. Great Elder Princess was stunned and then smiled. "It seems that I didn't disguise myself well enough and you saw through me. Enrich is my child. He has been missing for a long time. I heard that someone met him here 2 days ago. I was sick before. I know that Enrich is fine here, so I plan to come here when I get better." Tangua invited her in, and Great Elder Princess finally saw Xing, who was eating snacks there. As soon as Xing saw Tangua, he quickly stood up to hold her little hand. But this time, he also noticed Great Elder Princess and stared at her for a long time. Great Elder Princess's face darkened. Did this boy forget his mother when he had a wife? Mother. Great Elder Princess laughed again when she heard Xing calling her that she hadn't heard for a long time. Where have you been? Do you know how worried I was?" She walked over and patted Xing Yin's head. Seeing that Great Elder Princess was looking at Tangua, he hurriedly pulled Tangua behind him to protect her, which amused Great Elder Princess. Who is this?" "My wife." Xing felt that Great Elder Princess didn't seem to be angry, so he took Tangua to his side, as if to tell her that he had found a wife, which amused Great Elder Princess. Let mother talk to your wife, okay?" Xing hesitated for a long time and looked at Tangua eagerly. After Tangua nodded her head, he finally agreed. Great Elder Princess was speechless. This silly son of hers, how afraid was he that she would bully his little wife? No wonder he got a wife after going out for a while. He was so good at coaxing. Who did he learn this from? Since Tangua had seen through her, Great Elder Princess didn't hide it. First, she asked what was going on between Tangua and Xing. If her son took it seriously, she would find a chance to take Tangua away. If this girl was really willing to be with her silly son, she would certainly be happy. The little fool is good, Tangwa said. She found the little fool herself, and now she couldn't get rid of him. The reason why she didn't solve the problem of Xing Yin's brain was that she didn't know his background. Like to wear fast, female supporting lead, calm down please collect. Wear fast, female supporting lead, calm down. Chapter 2895. Moreover, she thought it was okay for him to be silly and cute. Every day, he was as obedient as a little wife. System, bad taste. For Tangwa, it didn't matter whether Xing Yin, who was so likable, became smart or not. Anyway, that little fool only cared about her now. She could afford to raise him and take care of him. Now that guy's identity should be extraordinary, she didn't need to worry about anything. Great Elder Princess could tell that this girl really thought of her son, so she was very happy. She could tell that she really liked her silly son. God bless her. She must have prayed for blessings every day. While she was praying for blessings, such a good girl with poor eyesight came. After repeated confirmation, Great Elder Princess was relieved when she learned that Tangwa was really willing to be with her silly son. It's my silly son's blessing to meet you. Then Great Elder Princess revealed her identity. After that, she was very satisfied when she saw that Tangwa was indifferent, as if she didn't care much about it. She was so calm at this age. As long as she paved the way for her, she wouldn't be bullied even after she passed away. In the future, she could put in a good word for Jinglin and help him take care of him in the future. Tangwa didn't know that Great Elder Princess had imagined so many years later. Then Great Elder Princess came to business. Where did you meet Ina? Great Elder Princess got used to it quickly when she called her intimately. They were a family, so of course, she should call her intimately. In a ruined temple. I happened to see those people throwing the little fool into the ruined temple. Because I was willing, I took him and an old beggar who protected the little fool. That old beggar is now my butler, Shi Xingshan. Great Elder Princess wrote down Shi Xingshan's name and her smile disappeared. Did you get anything out of him? No, he was hired to do this and didn't know the identity of the little fool. Okay, I'll investigate it. No matter who did it, I won't let him go. She didn't believe that it was an accident. It was just that she didn't have time to investigate the truth because she wanted to find Xing Yin. She was afraid that she would miss the opportunity to find Xing Yin if she was too busy investigating the truth. Now that Xing Yin was fine, whether it was a human or a ghost, she would find them one by one. Someone will definitely know about Immerse's return when the time comes. Tomorrow, I'll send some people here to disguise themselves as servants to protect you and Yin. Tangwa didn't refuse. Since her little fool was the son of Great Elder Princess, there were many things involved. The man sent him to be a beggar with a purpose. He was probably an enemy of Great Elder Princess. The enemy was in the dark while they were in the light. It was better to have a few more people to protect them. After I deal with the person who hurt Yin, I'll hold a big wedding for you. Does Guo still have anyone in her family? From Gong Jinglin, she knew that Tangwa was from another city. Such a capable girl, what kind of family did she come from? Unexpectedly, Tangwa only smiled and said, having someone in the family is better than having no one. I have nothing to do with them anymore. Great Elder Princess was stunned for a moment, and then nodded with a smile. It doesn't matter. You can treat Immerse and me as your family. When the time comes, I'll definitely hold a lively wedding for you. As for other things, she didn't ask more. Like to wear it quickly, supporting female lead, calm down, please collect it. Wear it quickly, supporting female lead, calm down. Chapter 2896. This girl liked her son, and her silly son liked this girl. Moreover, according to her observation, this girl was very outstanding. She didn't know why her family gave up on her. After chatting with Tangwa for the whole afternoon, Great Elder Princess went back with a basket of eggs. From tomorrow on, she would ask someone to make a bowl of egg soup every morning. The eggs laid by her daughter-in-law's chickens must be the best. From the next day, Great Elder Princess became busy. For more than 10 years, She stayed in the mansion, eating vegetarian food and reciting Buddhist scriptures. Now she went out of the mansion every day, either to the imperial palace or to hold some tea parties to invite the wives of the nobles. In just 10 days, Great Elder Princess's fame overshadowed all the women in the capital. She should be the only living Great Elder Princess. After all, she was the youngest sister of the late emperor. She was older than the current emperor, but her seniority was shockingly high. After inquiring about it, Great Elder Princess learned that the mountain Tangwa rented didn't belong to the royal family and still belonged to them. Therefore, she went to the emperor and told him about it. "Aunt, do you mean that you want those barren mountains?" The emperor nodded and said, "That's not a problem. The location of that place is actually good. The soil is not suitable for growing food, otherwise it would have been taken away long ago. In that case, it's good to give it to my daughter-in-law. Your cousin went out to find 2 smart and beautiful young wives. We can't treat them badly. Her chicken farm is good, and she makes us proud. What do you think, Your Majesty?" "Yes, I also like the chicken of the Tang family very much. How could the emperor not eat it?" A lot of people in the audience fawned on him. Now the boss of the Tang family's chicken farm had become his aunt's daughter-in-law, his cousin's daughter-in-law. They were on the same side. The emperor was wondering if she could use a mountain to raise chickens for the palace if he gave her the mountain when the time came. The taste was amazing. "Since you like it, give those barren mountains to Gui. She will definitely remember your kindness and give you some tributes, which are more precious than those in restaurants and your ministers' houses." Great Elder Princess covered her mouth and smiled. "At that time, you can also give your tributes to her. No one can compare with her." The emperor was amused. After more than 10 years, his aunt finally became the naughty aunt she used to be. They had been playing together since they were children and were rarely tortured by his aunt. He could still guess what she was thinking. But he was very tempted by her proposal. Those people wanted to line up to buy chickens, but he had special tributes. Being an emperor was such a wonderful thing. "Okay, I'll give all the surrounding mountains. But you have to help me." "All right, we're all family, so there's no need to be so formal." The emperor laughed. He was also a family, which was why he did not directly give the order. Even with his concubines and son, he didn't dare to say that they were family. But with this aunt, they could be said to be a real family. Because without his aunt's help, he wouldn't be who he was today. "Your Majesty, since you've given her the mountain, you can think of another title. I heard that Guido was sued a few days ago, saying that she sold fake goods. If it weren't for that girl's cleverness, she wouldn't have been able to get away." Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations 13. Chapter 2897. If she had a title and was protected by our royal family, those people would not dare to say anything bad about her, would they? The emperor shook his head and laughed. Sure enough, his aunt was still his aunt. Even if she had been in seclusion for more than 10 years, she still had the same character. It seemed that he would not feel bored in the following days. "Aunt, have you found out who took my cousin away?" "There are some clues." Great Elder Princess became more serious. "It should be those people. Except for them, I haven't offended anyone else." The emperor sighed. "I got you into trouble." "Don't say that. We grew up together. Your mother had been taking care of me in the palace. Helping you is helping myself, isn't it? If it weren't for you, how could I live so comfortably as Great Elder Princess?" The emperor didn't talk about this because they were a family and it would be too polite to talk about it. Who was the group of people who hurt Great Elder Princess? It should be his most powerful opponent at that time. He couldn't kill all of them, and he couldn't kill all of them. It was impossible for him to find out who they were. They probably hurt Xing because they hated Great Elder Princess for helping him. Great Elder Princess was the youngest sister of the late emperor and had a mother. She was very favored. With such a favored aunt who would speak up for him from time to time, Imperial Father would naturally look at him in a new light. At that time, there were many people who wanted to curry favor with Great Elder Princess, but she didn't like them and only played with him. He came from a poor family. His mother was a palace maid, so his aunt never despised him. Those who wanted to curry favor with his aunt, including his sworn enemy, failed. Later, when he got the throne, the other party failed, so he must have hated his aunt. But his aunt was favored, and the late emperor gave her a lot of power. In short, it was enough to protect herself. It was really not easy to hurt her. But people always made mistakes. For example, Great Elder Princess was poisoned when she was pregnant. The person who poisoned her was actually the sister of Prince Consort Sheng. It was said that Miss Xing was his sworn enemy who had always loved him. For the sake of Prince Consort Sheng's sister, she didn't kill her. Later, the child was born and he was a fool. Prince Consort Sheng felt guilty. He had always thought that he had let Great Elder Princess down. If he hadn't been careless, he wouldn't have let anyone hurt her. So he died of worry. Auntie, this time, no matter who it is, don't be soft-hearted. Execute them secretly. If we keep it, it will be a disaster sooner or later. Who knows what will happen next time? I think so too. They didn't kill En-er and only sent him to a dilapidated temple to be a beggar. They probably did it for the sake of humiliating me. Who knows, in the future, he might even give me a follow-up report to piss me off. Fortunately, En-er was lucky and encountered Gwer, avoiding this calamity. This time, I won't let them off. No one else will have a chance. Great Elder Princess came to see Tangwa again and brought her a big surprise. A title deed. Great Elder Princess stuffed the land deed to her and then pulled her out. She pointed at the visible mountains and said, "The surrounding mountains are all yours from now on. You can raise a lot of chickens. Don't refuse. The emperor gave it to you for a purpose. He asked you to keep a mountain and raise some chickens for the imperial palace." It was the first time that Tangwa had heard such a reason. Seeing that Great Elder Princess was sincere, she didn't refuse. "The emperor has been saying that the chickens you raise here are very delicious. After a while, he will inscribe a few words for you." That you're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.